These days, with everyone creating more content on social media, you might be looking for a way to be more creative, even if you're not the most creative person in the world. And if you ever tried to sit down and actually put the next viral video idea to paper, you probably can relate to staring at a blinking cursor in front of a Notion page for hours. On my channel, we've already talked about finding work that you love, your ikigai, or how to keep going even when you're not feeling creative. But how do we get started when we seemingly have no ideas? And personally, I struggle with this. From the days of writing those dreaded 100-page essays back in college to writing these YouTube scripts, the truth is, it's really hard to come up with good ideas. Some people call this writer's block. Stephen Pressfield, the author of The War of Art, calls this the resistance. I personally call it creative constipation. No matter what you call this lack of creative ideas keeps us from doing our best work. And it happens to all creatives, even the best of us. In fact, this is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. In the fourth book, The Goblet of Fire, in chapter 9, The Dark Mark, J.K. Rowling apparently rewrote chapter 9 over 13 times. She almost quit this series entirely. And yes, that means if J.K. Rowling quit, it means no Harry Potter world, no butterbeer, and say goodbye to that 43 billion empire. So how do we come up with ideas in the first place so I can be the next viral YouTuber? And more importantly, if I don't figure out the secret to creativity, I'll never hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube and I'll forever be in my mom's house. The secret lies in this book, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And by the end of this video, we'll unlock the 3 secrets to maximizing creativity, finding inspiration, and being the next viral YouTuber. And we're doing all of this in just 15 minutes. But before we break down this book, please support the authors with the links in the description. And quick shout out to Shortform for helping prepare for this video. Now back to the video. Step 1, steal inspiration. Okay, first things first. If I want to be a viral YouTuber, I need ideas. But ideas are hard. And as I'm reading this book, it's kind of blowing my mind. It not only says that it's okay to steal ideas, but argues that it's actually ethical. But how? Steal Like an Artist is based on 2 principles. 1, nothing is 100% original. 2, every creator is influenced by other creators in some way. And that's the problem. Oftentimes, we feel the need to create something original, something that the world has never seen before. But do we really need to add this pressure to make great work? Not exactly. A great example is the sixth god, Drake. Drake is known for singing along with R&B legends like Chris Brown, but also at the same time dropping bars with rappers like 21 Savage. But have you ever wondered, who's Drake's inspiration? Well, let's hear from Wheelchair Jimmy himself, aka Drake.
For that thing, like there's people who inspired me, obviously 50 Cent, 21 Questions will probably be my most inspiring example of a guy who's not supposed to be singing and girls loving it and going crazy.
And 50 Cent is not the only one. Similar to the rest of the hip-hop world, Drake has sampled classic songs like Drake's When to Say When was inspired by Jay-Z's Song Cry, and Stay Alive from DJ Khaled was inspired by the Bee Gees. Drake has given credit to people like Lil Wayne, Kanye West, Alicia Keys, and Vybz Kartel. The truth is, what we can learn from the sixth god or Drake is that great artists are collectors, and it's our job as creatives to collect things that we really love and curate great pieces of work. And rather than resisting the creative influence of others, great artists use this to create endless amount of ideas. But I'm not a rapper, I'm not the sixth god. So how can we provide it as creators? And more importantly, for me becoming that viral YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers. And this is the reason why my whole studio is filled with books. Sometimes I'll pick up a book like this. This is The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns, who was inspired by Chris Do. And as I'm diving deeper into Chris Do's stuff, I look at his carousels, his tweets, his YouTube videos, right? And I start thinking like, who does Chris Do look up to? And that's actually how I found this book, which is a really, really killer book. It's also one of the reasons why I got into the Mal Ravikant, because this is your guru's favorite guru, and Chris Do also really likes this book, and Vanessa Lau too. So shout out to both of y'all. If we can start following the people who inspire us, then we'll have endless inspiration from the past and present. But it's not only about surrounding our space with inspo. It also means protecting our environment against things that are boring or depressing. The truth is, negative energy feeds into a negative impact on our work. And this is probably one of the reasons why I don't have any pharmacy books in my vicinity. Not only does it bring up PTSD, but it'll put me out quicker than a 10 milligram of Ambien. And so far as I'm planning out my next YouTube channel, I've actually handwritten about 70 different ideas for my next channel, which is like right here. And one of the ideas I have is from this creator, Buildapreneur on YouTube. His stuff is really, really great, very entertaining. And he has this YouTube video about running his whole YouTube channel with just a Fiverr team. And as I'm looking through these sales books like Never Split the Difference or Win Without Pitching Manifesto, it made me think, what if I did a YouTube video where I experiment hiring a Fiverr closer or salesperson? This is getting really good. But once we've stolen some great inspo, what's the next step? Now it's time for the fun part. Step 2. Start creating. All right, so once we have the ideas that we ethically stole, the next step is to start creating with the stolen goods. But one of the problems that we face is creating can be actually really scary, especially as a beginner. And I can completely relate. This is 2006 Kevin. This was the birth of YouTube, where channels like Wong Fu and JK Films were thriving. And I wanted to create YouTube videos just like them. But every time I wanted to start, I would make an excuse. At first it was the video gear, I don't know how to use a camera. And when I got older and could afford the video gear, I had zero ideas about what I actually want to talk about. Plus, it's really, really awkward talking to a camera by yourself. Of course, still like an artist, many creators feel like we can't make great art until we have everything figured out, whatever that means. But the reality, making random stuff and figuring it out along the way is a process of discovering our unique style. Part of being a creator is making things, even if we're not experts at it. So rather than just waiting until we feel ready, we should just jump in regardless of how we feel about our talent or outcome. But how exactly do we go about creating content in the first place? So here's 4 tips that we can do to get the ball rolling. And the first tip lies with one of my favorite creators on YouTube. Start by copying other artists. This is Johnny Harris. He used to work for Vox and shot the viral video on the real reason McDonald's ice cream machines are always broken, and has over 10.6 million views. Something I really admire is not only his insane production quality, but his storytelling is epic. And to be honest, I'm not the only one that's really inspired by Johnny Harris's videos. I was actually browsing YouTube the other day trying to figure out Johnny Harris's secret, and I landed on this crazy video. It's called Why Every Johnny Harris Video Goes Viral with 500,000 Views. And in this video, he actually breaks down the secret.
It's my formula.
Pretty meta. And this was actually Johnny Harris's response. So this lies the first secret to creativity. An easy way to get started is just to copy the work style of our creative heroes. Think about it as reverse engineering. It helps us not only understand how the original creator made that piece of work, but you simply can't just copy. Imitation always falls short. The goal of copying isn't to duplicate, but to transform. And the difference between the original and our copies is where we discover our own creative voice. But this brings up the real question. How do we decide what to steal in general? Deciding what to make. Real talk, while I love Johnny Harris, the truth is I'm not that passionate about deep diving hours and hours about broken ice cream machines. So how do we decide what to actually make? And I think the answer lies here. This is Jake Tran. He makes documentaries on money, power, war, and crime. Whether you love or hate him, he didn't always start with this. He actually used to copy Graham Stephan style videos for a few years.
I got super inspired by him. I wanted to be like Graham. So I started making videos pretty much exactly like him. Like I've told him before, I started out copying him.
And it wasn't working. So what changed? The secret lies in Jake Tran's video. YouTubers will never tell you this. Jake broke out onto YouTube scene by using the Blue Ocean strategy.
Blue Ocean, or market creating strategy, is about how to create and capture unknown markets where demand is created rather than fought over.
He mapped out his favorite types of videos on the platform, listed characteristics like production value, comedy, personality, etc., and then plotted onto a graph, probably one of the most nerdy things you could ever do. And then he plotted the vibe that he wanted for his channel. So naturally, I stole his process. Okay, so I actually created this Canva chart, and as I'm looking at different channels, I'm like, what are some of the vibes I like? Well, first of all, I love the Christo vibe with the fitted hat, the creative vibe. You can just tell that he's very artsy. I also like Ali Abdal's book club vibe and his productivity videos. His stuff is very, very tactical. I also like Johnny Harris's documentary style of storytelling, and I also like Film Booth. If you never watched Film Booth, he does these really, really great tutorials on video and YouTube using comedy and education. He weaves in these crazy storylines, and of course, you cannot forget the crafty hacks of someone like Vanessa Lau or Alex Hormozy. For Alex, who can resist that stash, bro? So I took the elements and I plotted the different characteristics of what I wanted for my channel. Not what I'm an expert in, like production value, and this is why. If you have zero ideas, Steal Like an Artist recommends making the art that we actually care about, even if it's not what we're used to or we have zero experience with it. Sticking to only what you know makes boring art. Another thing that I actually struggled with was figuring out content that I actually cared about. You know, I have about 1,000 something videos on my channel, but are these videos things I'm actually really proud of? And while the blue ocean strategy was really good at figuring out like my style or kind of like the vibe I wanted, I still didn't know what to create. So I did an exercise, I can't remember where, but it told me to look at old pictures from my childhood, my teenage years, to just see the themes that I really cared about throughout time. It's kind of interesting. I used to love playing with Legos, drawing Pokemon, Zelda, and Star Wars. I used to love going to the library, reading books, taking out videos. Not those videos, you sick. I love making friends on the playground. And after looking at all these pictures, I realized there are 3 themes I really cared about. 1, education. 2, connections. 3, creativity. And I was in my room thinking like, oh yeah, dude, I totally love books. I mean, look around my room right now. Let's try book summaries. In the past, I did relatively well on my channel. And if I do high production quality, it'll be actually something I'm proud of and want to share to others. But how do we do this strategically? Step 3, maximizing creativity. So the next step after stealing and making cool is making sure that the creative ideas keep on coming. One of the worst feelings in the world is just having it stop completely and just having this creative constipation that I always talk about. So how can we steal more and maximize our creativity? So let's look at one of my favorite creators, Matt D'Avella. Matt D'Avella is a Netflix documentary filmmaker, minimalist, and has one of the best biceps on YouTube. Seriously. Something that we can learn from Matt is that he doesn't trip, fall, empty out his apartment, take a thumbnail, and accidentally, whoops, upload and hit publish for his videos. They're well thought out with his high production quality. So I spent the last few hours deep diving into Matt's videos, and there's 3 things that Matt does that are emphasized in Steal Like an Artist. And the first secret is in this video called How I Manage My Personal Finances as a Minimalist. Number 1, prioritizing financial security. The biggest killer of creativity is adulting and responsibilities, aka bills. Let's be real, if you're worried about your next credit card bill the next month, you're not going to think about how do I create the best YouTube videos. Something I learned by watching his videos is that Matt is proactive about his finances so that he can focus on his creative work. He constantly manages his expenses, has a savings account, and invests regularly. Something that Steal Like an Artist recommends is finding a job outside of creative work. Not only does it help with financial stability, but it gives us a routine to build upon so that we can block out the creative time for our work. So one of the things that's really important to me is actually implementing these type of things. So I literally applied for this head of sales position at this podcast company. I applied for some contract work, and a few people have reached out to me to help them build out their sales processes and proposal process and all that boring stuff. But more importantly, I also applied to be a peer supporter at Ali Abdal's part-time YouTuber Academy. Pretty cool stuff. If everything works right, I'll be bringing about 20K per month from these 2 gigs alone, but that does not include my AdSense revenue. All right, so securing the finances is one of the first steps. But what's the next secret? I found the next secret in 10 rules that changed my life. Number 2, setting aside time for hobbies and boredom. This is Biceps by Matt. Okay, it's just Matt D'Avella's parody channel in his master YouTube course. When Matt isn't emptying out his apartment for a YouTube thumbnail, Matt goes to the gym and annoys his wife Natalie in bed. The truth is no one can work 24/7. And Steal Like an Artist recommends doing something outside of work just for the joy of it. These hobbies actually improve creativity because they encourage drawing new connections. Personally, as I'm writing this YouTube script, I find that going for random walks, doing yoga or jujitsu just gives me the space to take a breather. Boring tasks like tidying up the house, taking a dump, really help my mind wander and lets new ideas spark without even trying. But it's one thing to get the ideas, but how do you keep the momentum going? And I think I found the secret. Matt breaks down his productivity system for YouTube, which leads me to number 3, using the right tools. Using a system of tools can help organize your life. In case you don't want to spend the next 25 minutes watching Matt's video, the TLDR version of Matt's system for his YouTube videos is using 1, a notebook, which he uses Apple Note, 2, calendar or Google Calendar, a to-do list, to do, and cloud storage, Google Drive. While I'm personally a tech bro and I love using different apps and using a whole suite of tools like Dropbox and Notion, Steal Like an Artist recommends keeping it simple and using these 2 tools that you probably have at home. This is a $1.50 dry erase calendar that I got from Daiso back when I lived in LA, and I currently use as a habit tracker. As Steal Like an Artist recommends, the goal is to have an unbroken line of X's on the calendar. So whatever that goal is, the goal is to just do creative work every single day. So one of the habits I'm working right now is just writing more. especially with YouTube scripts, so I can upload more than just once a month. Another thing I'm working on is something called Hard 75. This is where you do 2 workouts, take a body selfie, drink a gallon of water, read 10 pages every single day for 75 days. That's why it's called 75 Hard. So I printed out a habit tracker off Google and just check it off. Personally, I find myself not wanting to break the streak, and it keeps me going the longer I do it. It's very true what people say. Momentum kind of propels you forward. And the second thing that is recommended, it's a journal. Number 2, journal our days. Keeping a notebook helps us keep track of the highs and lows of life and work. It doesn't have to be an essay, but just capturing the highlights. And over time, the notebook actually becomes a resource that tracks our growth and progress in both our personal and creative life. For me, I have my trusty 5-minute journal. I'll probably do a review on this later, but this is where I write down my wins, my highlights, or the things that I'm just really grateful for. It's kind of crazy. I started doing this 5-minute journal since the beginning of my entrepreneurial career. So I can literally look back and be like, oh yeah, I remember that moment. And I also have a $6 notebook that I bought from Target. Let me grab it. It's literally this white journal over here. And I know this is going to sound really weird or woo-woo, but I basically write letters to the universe, God, or source. And I'm just trying to figure that area of my life out right now, and just building a relationship with something that I believe is way bigger than me and something I don't know. Pretty cool stuff. Personally for me, resistance or writer block just happens. It's inevitable. And when you're in the moment, it can feel impossible to overcome. Oftentimes, what I found the best solution isn't just to work harder, but it's just to step away and get some inspiration. But getting started and getting ideas is the easy part. So how do you keep going after you get some initial momentum? Well, I actually shot Keep Going by Austin Kleon that kind of covers this. Click the thumbnail to watch it. Stay compassionate, authentic, and rebellious. Peace.